Welcome to the first day of October 2020. Good to put September behind us. What a wild September it's been weather-wise and all the things that have happened related to the weather in the month of September in the Intermountain West, with that big blast of wind and cold and snow and freezing temperatures in early September to the transition back to dry, warm, summer-like conditions, and then the breakout of the fire activity that really wanted to go. Looks like the pattern is going to be sticking with us here for a while. The weather pattern is going to be blue skies and fair weather conditions today. We do have a cold front that's going to produce a few showers Friday night, but unfortunately that little wave coming in from Canada is going to be more directed towards the east of us. So it's just not going to be that front that helps us out with the Mullen fire, the Cameron Peak fire. Just not going to get any help there. It's back to fair dry weather Sunday and into next week. We still see that pattern change coming, but not until around or after October 10th. Changes in mid-October are very common, and a lot of this has to do with the stratosphere, believe it or not. Since there's almost no weather to talk about, we'll talk a little bit about our stratospheric interactions when the seasons change. Let's take a look, though, right where we are now, with a high-pressure ridge developing along the border of Canada into the west coast. This is where this pattern has been all week. So the colder, wet weather is here. The warm, dry weather is out west. And what we need, some stormy weather out of Alaska, or the Gulf of Alaska is bottled up, can't come in. It just gets forced up, down, and around. And all we can get are these little waves like this that'll come on down that will clip us with temperatures going up and down, and only that slight chance of showers Friday night. There's that ripple we showed you yesterday coming down, but notice from where it was yesterday, it's just about 50 miles more east, and that's bad because it's going to direct the better moisture away from the region as we get into Friday night and Saturday. By Wednesday of next week, there's not a lot of difference from where we are now. There we are on Wednesday. We still have a high pressure ridge that's along the west coast into the desert southwest. It's weaker, but it's still there, and our flow is still coming in from the northwest. So essentially, it's the same basic weather pattern. And this is where the precipitation chances are going to be. You can see the axis of showers that we showed you yesterday, which was actually here yesterday, has shifted east. Now, it could still shift west back. We've seen that happen before with these little waves diving in from the northwest, as they can be quite unpredictable. But right now, we're just not hopeful of any good precipitation, I'm afraid to say, through the weekend and deep into next week. Now, here we are again talking about that pattern change around or after October 10th or so. And here we are, the modeling shows high pressure now more building into eastern Pacific, and that's going to allow the door to open up here, allowing that colder, moist area to come into the west coast. Now, by next weekend, maybe California, Washington, Oregon are going to start to see some rain finally, and that will push south and east into the region. Another reason we're confident that we're going to get this weather pattern change around the 10th to the 15th or so of October is we usually do. The middle, second, third weeks of October, we usually get something coming through. And there's really a good reason for it. There's no surprise why you can usually count on a mid-October change in the weather. A lot of it has to do with the stratosphere. Now, I'm going to throw at you a couple of graphics here that can be a little bit confusing, but I'll try to highlight what the important things are to look at. First of all, this bottom axis here is latitude. So here's the equator, and this is where we live. We live right around here in that 40 to 45 degree latitude, somewhere around 40 to 45. If you're down into southern Colorado, New Mexico, you're down about 35 or 40 degrees latitude. But if you look at where we are in the summer, this shows where the winds in the stratosphere, talking about winds 60,000, 70, 80,000 feet and higher. What we tend to see is that the jet stream winds tend to come in the summer from the east to the west, opposite of what we're normally getting. During the summer season, the stratospheric winds actually move from the east coast to the west coast, opposite of what you normally think. And that's a typical summer pattern as the global circulation wind patterns change and the earth is heated differently during the course of the summer. Notice in the southern hemisphere how strong the stratospheric winds are in the summer in the southern hemisphere and how much weaker they are in the summer in the northern hemisphere. So you get different hemispheric things going on based on the seasons. So in the summer, you have light stratospheric winds coming in from the east, but right around the middle of October is the time where the whole globe starts to see these stratospheric changes. These stratospheric changes will perturb the lower parts of the atmosphere, where our weather is, the troposphere. So what will end up happening is when you start to perturb the stratosphere as the seasons change, it induces what we call gravity waves. Gravity waves are kind of like taking your garden hose and picking it up off the lawn and giving it a quick snap. And you'll notice a wave will form along that hose. Well, those perturbations of the stratosphere as the seasons change tend to cause changes in the weather in the troposphere, and especially as we see these seasonal changes. Historically, the stratospheric changes in the northern hemisphere at our latitude happen in the middle of October. So that tends to set in motion a chain of events that brings about a weather change. And this is what it looks like as you get into the winter. Everything flips. The weaker stratospheric winds now go into the southern hemisphere. Northern hemisphere stratospheric winds increase, and instead of them coming from the east to the west, they go west to east. So when you change seasons, the whole globe goes through these changes, and it actually, believe it or not, starts in the stratosphere. So when we see these stratospheric changes, and we do see them between the 10th and 15th and the 20th of October, you're going to get a weather pattern change. Let's just hope it's the weather pattern change that brings us the cold, wet weather we need to get the fires out. Thanks for watching and listening to the Day Weather Podcast. We'll talk to you on Friday.